My husband is addicted to beef jerky. This bag, which is only 2.85 ounces, is $4. This is a little snack for him, and we can't afford to be paying $4 for this little bit. So we're going to look at making it on our own. Let's get going. Okay, to start off with, you're going to need a covered container. I'm doing 2 covered containers because I'm doing quite a bit and it'll be too hard to mix around in one. Either way, we're going to make a marinade so that the meat soaks overnight, so you get all the flavors that you want. Then I start off with my base. Now, I don't always do the same thing all the time. I always mix soy sauce, teriyaki, Worcestershire sauce, and see, I do know how to say it, Worcestershire sauce. So basically what I do is, on my mood, I'll pick and choose what I want to put in. But with these 3 ingredients, I need to put a 1/4 cup in. So, and sometimes I'll do these bowls different so that you get a different flavor. All right, we'll spin it off. So, we'll put, I filled about 2/3 with the soy sauce, and then I'm going to fill it up the rest of the way with Worcestershire on this one. And then this one, I'm going to take the teriyaki, and I think I'll do 2/3 of that. It doesn't really matter. You can just mix it up however you want. And let's see, we'll do Worcestershire sauce with the rest of that. Alright, so we're going to put that to the side and clean up as you go. Now, I do put a lot of spice in it, and to take the edge off the spices, you want some type of citrus. So you could do, I'm using lemon juice, but you could use lime. You can use orange juice, whatever you want. And I really don't measure. I'm not much of a measurer. So, just put a good amount in. I like to put in minced garlic. This is sort of the part where you gotta individualize it to what your flavors are. So, I take a good bit, put it in each. Now this is sort of the fun part. I went to a spice store in, where was it? Greenville, South Carolina. And I just bought a bunch of different types of spices. I have habanero pepper, cayenne pepper, chipotle pepper, you can use chili powder, Creole seasoning, and my husband loves it when I put red peppers in it. So we're gonna add some red peppers. I just have 1/8 teaspoon, and it's sort of to control me because I'll over season otherwise, and Lily doesn't really mind, but I think we should control the spices a little bit. So basically, I do like heaping 1/8 teaspoon on this one. Sometimes I'll do more. And then I usually just pick like 5 or 6 of these and do like decent sized helpings of 1/8 teaspoon. And honestly, to tell you the truth, I don't even measure very accurately. I just sort of go with whatever my whim is. So if you like more accurate, I mean, once you start making it, you'll get a feel for what you like. That was really a heaping one. And I'll do some in there. It's really to everybody's taste. It also depends on what your sensitivity is to spices, because everybody else likes a different level. I think I'm gonna skip the chili. And I think I'll do 2 of these. Alright, fair warning. We're working with some heavy spicy peppers. Pepper makes you sneeze. So that's all we have to do here. You can add, let me grab it real quick. You can add honey if you want to make it a little sweeter. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It's coming, a little bit low. Put that to the side. So just mix it up a little bit. Alright, so we're going to put those to the side of us, and we're going to bring a cutting board and a knife. I would suggest making sure to sharpen your knife before you do this. You're trying to cut it fairly thin. So you have 2 options. You can buy you can use any round steak. I mean, you can use bottom round. I like to use a little bit of higher quality because it's not as fatty. But, I mean, any round steak will do. You want to try to do the thinner round steak, though, if you can find the thin slices. So I have round thin. You can buy it like this and just cut off the fat, but whenever you're dehydrating, which is what you're doing to make beef jerky, you don't want fat because it's going to kill the preservative of dehydrating. So get rid of the fat as much as you can. But this is $8.74 per pound. As I pointed out earlier, I'm a little cheap. The whole reason I make beef jerky. So I go to this, and if your family eats it, like our family eats it, you're gonna go through it fairly quickly. This is $5.48. So $8.74 to $5.48. I'll grab my knife and sharpen it. So let me unwrap this up, and I'll be right with you. As you can see, I'm cutting off the fat on the eye round thin that we bought that was already sliced. So I'm just taking off the fat. That's all I'm doing. Now, honestly, I get a little lazier on the bigger one because it's so much, but these I usually cut them in half. But you could just put them in whole. You'll see the slices I do when I get to the roast, but you just want to throw it in there. I throw it right into the marinade, and now we're going to pick the roast. Now, one thing about cutting up the roast is there's usually a little bit of fat on the bottom. This one actually doesn't, but usually there's like a slice down here. I'll go through and trim that off. Another suggestion is I put this in the freezer for a little bit, but they do say if you freeze it for a little bit, it's a lot easier to cut and make life easier for you. Personally, I've seen a little bit of improvement doing that, but not a huge amount. And I really don't like holding that cold of a piece of meat, so that's just me personally. So do what you want, but it does help a little bit. I did put it in the freezer for, I think, a half an hour, 45 minutes. So you don't want it completely frozen, but it does help. And then you just want to cut it as thin as you can, and you just keep throwing it in the marinade. this is probably about a good slice. I mean, it's probably less than a quarter of an inch maybe. But you're just trying to get it as thin as possible. The thinner you make it, the easier it is going to be, well, the shorter time period that it's going to take to dehydrate. If you make it too thick, if it's thicker, it's just going to take longer to dehydrate, but it will. So you just keep going. And like these slices are starting to get pretty large. But that's okay. And some of them are half slices because I'm trying to get thinner. So some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller. I don't think anybody really cares. They care how it tastes. And you just keep going for the whole loaf. Now, because I froze it, it isn't getting as much of it. But a lot of times, you'll get like a little wing at the end here. So then I'll just cut off the wing before it gets too thick. And I'll just do that separate. And just throw it in the marinades. It doesn't matter, you can mix them up. It ain't gonna hurt nothing. So I'm gonna finish cutting this until I get to the end, and I'll show you what I do then. Now a lot of people would say, why is she going through all that? This is a little thick, so I'm gonna actually cut a little bit off. Just put that separate. A lot of people ask, why doesn't she just get a slicer? Well, to be honest, the start of this video explained it all. I'm cheap. Secondly, I just don't mind cutting it up. And I don't care if the slices are even. Everybody has a different opinion. I have been looking at them lately, and I'm finding the really inexpensive ones have a lot of bad reviews. So let me know if you have a slicer, because I am thinking about purchasing one, and that's probably going to be the next purchase I make. So if you have any recommendations, let me know. But now you can see we're getting towards the end, and it's getting harder to slice. Now, this is going to be a much tender way to cut it in this direction. But when you get this thin, I don't like cutting it anymore in that direction. So this way is supposed to be a little bit tougher of a meat, and it has to do with the stretch of the meat. I have had no complaints about it from my family, but that is what they say. So then I just start cutting in this direction, and I still try to cut as thin as possible. And we just finish up the little bit that we have left. I sort of try to split them evenly between the two bowls. And there we go. So now we'll put this to the side. And all you're going to do is you want to get your hands in there and get this really mixed up. I'll go to the next one and do the same exact thing. All right. So I'm going to wash my hands now. But all we need to do at this point is we're going to cover it up, put it in the fridge. I like to marinate it overnight. I feel like that's the best way to do it. If you want, you can, I would say probably at least 6 hours marinate it. But it's just easy enough to throw it in. And tomorrow I'll come in and we'll lay this on the trays and get it in the dehydrator. And so I'll talk to you in a little bit. But all right, we got our meat all marinated. It's been sitting overnight. It's all good and juicy. My suggestion would be to mix it up again. Make sure you get those flavors all over the place. Then we're going to take our trays and we're just going to spread this out on the trays. And we're going to make sure we're not covering each other up. Little by little. Sometimes you gotta find some smaller ones to fit them in, because you want to get as much on these trays as you can, because you don't want to have to keep running different batches of it. But you can see how I have it laid out there. Now, I like to just let it go like this. I like keeping those juices on it. It takes a little bit longer to dehydrate. But what some other people do is they'll take paper toweling and they'll damp that moisture right off. I mean, it's been marinating, so you got some good juices soaked in. But I tend to just let it go. I feel like it's getting that flavor baked in for you. And we just keep putting it in. I have my dehydrator right here. And we do this tray by tray. So the bottom tray, I did wiping off the excess moisture. The next tray, I'm just going to put in there just as is. And again, I'm just laying it out. Now, one thing about cutting it with the knife is you can tell they're not evenly, even with an individual piece. It's thinner on this side and thicker on this side. If you had a slicer, you could get more even slices. So I'm going to do the rest of these trays without doing the paper toweling. And we can compare then how much longer it takes without soaking those juices off. But with them not all being even slices, I don't feel like it's going to be a true 100% comparison, except for all the slices in these batches are going to be uneven. So we'll sort of do a judgment call on that. I'm going to keep filling these trays up, and I'll be back in a minute and I'll show you how I run the dehydrator. We have all our meat spread out on trays and ready to go. It just barely fits, so you really want to make sure you get them close together but not overlapping. And then we're just going to close the door. This is the Magic Mill 7 tray. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, 7 tray mill dehydrator. And all you do is you hit the time temp, and then the time is going to flash. Now, how long will it take? It really depends how you like it. My husband likes it to the point where it's sort of like crispy bacon, and he likes it very, very well done. Other people like it fairly chewy. It also depends if you're going to pat the moisture off. So timing is a little hard to say. I would say you're probably going to need at least 5 hours. And then you can do it. It's pretty hard to go over, honestly. I let it run, and I usually start checking it at 6 hours. And then, but I have run sometimes to 10 hours. And so I usually just let it run for 10 hours, but you can adjust the time. So you hit the time temp, and then you can do, if you go minus, it's going to go to 9 hours and 30 minutes. If you go plus, it'll go up. So it's very easy to set. You hit it again, it's going to go to the top. I usually let it run at 167 degrees. Some people like to start it at 145 and then raise it up to 167. It's really a preference. I used to do that and I didn't really notice a difference. So I stopped doing that and I just run it at 167 now. So it keeps resetting after I talk. So if you just hit those through, and then you can hit start, and it's just going to start counting down. And we'll let it run the time. We'll check it at probably like 6 hours, and we'll keep checking it every so often after that until we feel like it's done to the temperature or the texture that we enjoy and appreciate. Now, not everybody has a dehydrator, and I know this. And it is an investment. They have some less expensive ones than the Magic Mill. They also have some that are more expensive. We can do a review on different dehydrators in the future. But before buying a dehydrator, I did do it in the oven. The problem with doing it in the oven is you don't usually get the airflow unless you have a convection oven. And the temperature doesn't go down as low as this. I believe mine went to 170 degrees, which it worked out fine, but you're not going to get as much meat in here. And if you're making it as often as I am, you're going to get sick of that real quick. But to try it, to see if you like making it at home, it's a good place to start. Just when you do it, put like a wooden spoon in the door and just like let it stick out to let some of that air flow while it's running. And I definitely would stay closer to it. This and the dehydrator, I let this run and I'll go to sleep and wake up in the morning and check on it. Like I said, my husband likes it really well done. So just let it run. After it's dehydrated, it's shelf stable for about a week to 2 weeks. So you can put it in the refrigerator, get it longer, put it in the freezer, even longer than that. You can also get this plastic bag seals. You can also get dehydrating packets. There's a lot of things you can do to extend the shelf life. But that's what I'm going to say on this now, and we'll come back and check on it when we're closer to it being done. Our beef jerky's done, and now we got Billy here. He's going to taste test it.
Taste tester.
We did run it for the 10 hours because he was testing it along the way, and that's how he likes it. So remember, we did take the bottom tray and we did the paper toweling. So we're going to test that, and we're going to test the other racks and see if there's any taste difference. He did say that along the way when he was trying it out, it didn't seem like it was cooking any faster to have it blotted than not having it blotted. And we're going to also taste it against store-bought. So, all right, so that's the one that we did the paper toweling.
This is the blotted one. So
that's the blotted.
You can see it's pretty crispy.
That's good? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, one thing when he was doing it, I'm trying to find a smaller piece here.
We gotta see what Norman thinks.
Yeah, Norman loves beef jerky.
He liked it.
When you crack it open, you know it's done enough if it's sort of got those white lines. And it should be able to bend. Now this is pretty crispy. It doesn't have to break. It should just bend at least.
This was the non-blotted.
Non-blotted.
It's a thicker piece.
Does it have more flavor?
No.
About the same amount of flavor?
About the same.
So it doesn't really seem like the blotting does anything.
No, when you get to the thinner part, it's about the same as what it was before.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit, but I don't think it's enough that I wouldn't have noticed it if you wouldn't have pointed it out.
Gotcha. So I don't think I'd waste my time blotting.
Mm-mm.
It seems like it cooked at the same rate too.
If nothing else, the non-blotting gives it a tiny little bit of pliability, but not. I wouldn't mind if it did or didn't.
Alright. So now store-bought.
I mean,
I will say, smell-wise, I like the smell of the home cooked better. But it's different flavoring. This is original flavor.
it's been a while since I had it, and it's actually pretty thick. But you can definitely tell that the coloring's different, and this is definitely a lot. They pulled this out a lot sooner.
So if you wanted it more that texture, it was probably about 6 hours.
Yeah. This has more of the smoky, woodsy, grilly type of a.
Okay, but you can
Okay,
add that
well,
flavoring. You can get smoke flavoring for your beef
Yeah.
jerky.
If nothing else, this tastes more processed than what the real stuff does.
Okay, so
That's kind of what I'm taking from it. It's a lot more processed, so it's got more of the. I don't think that the texture of this is because of the drying process or the dehydrating process. I think it's got a lot to do with the preservatives that are actually added to it that's giving it that. I do believe they put extra preservatives in here.
sea salt, brown sugar, soy sauce, hydrated corn protein, yeast extract, flavors. Oh yeah, there's some.
Yeah.
You get a little extra pineapple powder. So, all right.
Yeah.
So there is the cost advantage of making your own. You also have control over what you're putting into your food that you're consuming. Taste wise,
I'm not gonna go. You can flavor it as much or as little as you want. So, taste wise, I'm not really gonna say there's any difference in taste wise, just because if you want to go heavy duty on your ingredients, you're gonna get. She's made a couple of batches that were like, it hit you, and I don't mind it. I actually like it. So I don't think taste wise there's anything that you read in the back of one of these packages you can easily put into yours. The brown sugar we didn't do, and we do that mostly because I don't want the extra calories that brown sugar and all the extra sweeteners are going to add to it.
Yeah.
Because
We did put some honey in, but that's a natural sweetener at least.
I mean, I eat the beef jerky because it's more of a healthier snack. Maybe not caloric wise, but protein wise, it gives you that burst of protein. Is why I eat it. So I don't really want the extra sugars that are added to it, but you can definitely add the sugars. The one thing I've never experienced with our homemade stuff that you will with any store-bought stuff is if you get it where it's super fresh on the shelf, it's going to have that nice pliability where it's not going to be tough to eat. But I think everyone has basically had a bag of beef jerky where it feels like you're chewing on rawhide or you're just ripping it off. And I've never experienced that with this. Maybe it's because I eat it too fast. I think it's more or less because of the fact that the preservatives will cause that in this more so with the shelf life and how long it's going to be sitting on the shelf. You don't really know how long it's been there. They do have expiration dates on them, but I also do believe that there are differences in, especially even brands too. So yeah. I would much prefer the homemade stuff, and it's as far as price wise, it's
you can't beat it.
A lot cheaper.
You can't beat it. So. All right, well, that sort of wraps it up. I guess in conclusion, you're going to have to play around with your own recipe on what you want to put in it, what you don't want to put in it, how spicy you want it, but you can make it your own. Also, cook time, I would say you need with what we did, at least 6 hours, and then after that, it depends on what texture you like. He likes it really well done. It's like steak. Yeah. How do you want your steak?
I will say, I start picking at it about 6 hours, and I'll kind of, if we looked at the trays right now, you'd see a couple of blank spots in there, because I will come at it at 6 hours and start looking at it, but I just prefer once it gets refrigerated, the crispy, almost the well done bacony. It doesn't lose any of the flavor. It doesn't taste burnt. It's just easier to eat, and I just like that consistency better than the more chewy having to rip it. But if you like that more chewy, then definitely at 6 hours start testing it. I will say once it cools, it changes a little bit once it's cool as far as it gets a little bit more crispier as it cools, but pretty much if you like the consistency when you pull it out of the oven, it's about how it's going to be when it cools. So,
All right. Well, thanks. Keep following us and subscribe. We're going to do a lot more in the kitchen as well and try a lot of different things. We also have a lot of on the go, and that's why we thought beef jerky would be great to look at for you guys, because we're always on the go, camping, biking, kayaking, and it's great to take easy on the go snacks. So we'll talk to you soon, and I hope you have a great day.